Welcome to PSL Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on episode 329.
Yeah.
An update episode.
And we're back to the present. We're not talking about the future in the same way.
No chat GPT.
No chat GPT this time.
That was a fun episode. If you haven't caught it, jump back to episode 328. And we keep, Mike and I, Mike keeps finding more things to do with chat GPT to help in reselling.
That's really what it comes down to. I mean, I guess I wasn't going to make this an episode about ChatGPT, but one thing,
I know.
One
Here
thing,
we are.
how this connects,
but it's an update episode.
Yeah, how it connects, I guess, with reselling, and I just think in general is what sets us apart as resellers and hustlers is the fact that, and not all of us. I think it's more of an entrepreneurial thing, and not everybody who is a listener here goes completely down that path. But I think there is something about being somebody who wants to work for yourself, who wants to be successful, develop a durable, kind of anti-fragile household with your income, all of those things. It takes a certain kind of person who's willing to think outside the box, willing to do things that other people aren't willing to do. And like Orlando and I were chatting throughout the week, and I was sending him a couple of things like ways of utilizing ChatGPT for making money, specifically with reselling, like on eBay. And I've actually, I'm sure other people have thought about this, like even with the art stuff, the digital art if you're really good at making the prompts and if you're creative and you know some of the terms, you could easily make digital art and sell it at booths, sell it on Etsy, sell it on eBay.
That's why artists can't stand that.
They can't, they're upset, but it's its own type of thing. But again, it takes people to think outside the box. I mean, somebody had to think outside the box to say, hey, what if we, take this random pixelated picture of a monkey and sell it for millions of dollars, right? Like people think outside of the box for stuff. And
are those called NFTs?
Yeah, NFTs.
Remember when those were worth money?
I mean, some of them still maybe.
We almost made our own too.
Yeah, we did make a couple. I don't think we sold any though. We just kind of made them because it was something fun.
They're just cool.
But what sets us apart, going back full circle to what I started with, is are we willing to think outside of the box and innovate? Because I sent Orlando a couple of stuff. I was like, hey, like, what if you could do this and we could do this? And like, this is a way you can make it do this for you on eBay. And he's like, oh man, like, I wonder how many people are going to start doing this. And my thought was, and what I told him was like, what I think sets us apart is at some point, the gurus, the influencers are going to be on social media and they're going to say, you can use ChatGPT to do this, and this is a way to make more money on. And then everybody's going to jump on the bandwagon. Mm-hmm. But the reality is by the time they get to that point where everyone's jumping on the bandwagon, there's already something else that those influencers have found even more profitable. And that thing that they're giving away has kind of lost its luster.
Well, it's funny you bring that up. So I just want to touch on two things and then we'll get on with the update episode. So it's interesting because whenever there's a new technology, individuals tend to believe that technology is going to save them time, which most of the time it does.
It's debatable, but it can.
It can. But then it's like the shiny new toy, and you think that it's going to change everything, right? So I'm going to play devil's advocate here. So for example, I've been seeing lately a lot of TikTok posts from resellers, and I'm not throwing shade at anybody, but they're like, oh, it's so great. ChatGPT, I could have it write a description for me for my eBay listings. And, they put in the item and then ChatGPT writes a paragraph long description. And I'm like, yeah, that would have been cool maybe 20 years ago. Right. So the amount of time, because the reason I say 20 years ago is that that's not how eBay functions anymore. On eBay, in your descriptions, it needs to be 1 or 2 lines and that's it. Like it does not have to go in depth. No one wants to know the history of an item. No one wants to know where you got the item. Like back in the day, in the early 2000s, late 90s on eBay, it would be these long stories about, I went to the States, and there was this World War II veteran and they had this uniform and they use this in the battle of whatever and blah, blah, blah. Like no one's looking at that anymore. The people that want to buy know what they're looking for. And if they wanted the background data, they could just look it up on Google. Right. And so, I've seen some people spending this time with ChatGPT and you could have finished that listing in about a minute or two flat, but instead now you're going to spend another 5-10 minutes, copy pasting, breaking down that information, and it's not going to help your eBay sales.
Yeah. I think that's where it's like the people have to think outside the box. If you're only thinking in like the surface level stuff, it's almost like a novelty that really probably won't stick around and help you. But I'm sure you've heard thought like processes or thought games where people will say, like, if you were to take all the money in the world and put it in a pool and then distribute it evenly to everybody, within like 10 years, all the people who are currently rich, not all, but a vast majority of the people who are currently rich will probably be rich again. And a good majority of people who are currently poor will be poor again. And it's because the people who are rich know how to handle money. Like, they know what to do with money. They know how to leverage their circumstances. And people who don't have a lot of money have never had the opportunity or the whatever it is, experience to learn what to do with it. It's instead they've only learned consumerism. And I kind of think about that with something like this. Like, there are going to be people who only do surface level stuff with this, and it may not change or do anything and help. But can this be the thing where I find something that's creative enough that I can profit on?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's valid.
And whether it's this or something else, like, that's one of the things I just want like our listeners to be thinking about, like, as new things come out, whether it's a new platform, whether it's a new like tool, whether it's a new, whatever it is, are you going to basically be like the herd and be able to maybe make some money and or are you going to be like an innovator and figure out a way, like, is this my opportunity? Is this my chance to like really change the game? And now I'm in a position where I was able to capitalize completely on this, as opposed to just, waiting. Cause I mean, how many times it's like a few years after an invention comes out and you're like, man, I used to think about that kind of stuff all the time. Why didn't I think about turning that into a like, so anyways, maybe this is it. Maybe this, and if not this, something else as a reseller that you can say, this is my niche. Like, nobody's thought about selling or making or doing this the way I'm doing it. And here I am.
See, so here's the other side. It kind of related to ChatGPT. So it's interesting how things have changed in the Amazon FBA world. So even 3 years ago, there was a lot what the youngsters call gatekeeping, or, if you truly were selling on Amazon, you weren't going to sell where you got wholesale from. You weren't going to sell. You weren't going to not sell. You would sell it. The people that sold course of it, but you wouldn't share it. You wouldn't share how to get engaged in certain categories. You wouldn't definitely share what you're selling. And what I'm seeing now in social media, especially in TikTok, is I see a lot of people, they're freely open with all the information. And I think it's because they're not in the business of making money on Amazon FBA anymore. They're making money in the business of selling information about how to sell an FBA. And so I've seen, now everybody knows how to get ungated. You don't even have to join a Discord. And so all this information is out there, how to get ungated, how to buy from a wholesaler, where to go to wholesale, how to do Amazon FBA, what to sell. And the interesting thing is that there's always a new crowd that has no idea what you're talking about. So you can always sell them. So for example, one video was like, hey, we bought these things for $30 and we're going to flip them on eBay for $55. Okay. So if you do the math, you're not making a lot of money, especially if you're doing free shipping and then it gets competitive, you're going to end up in the negative. So how do I relate to ChatGPT? I think ChatGPT is going to lead to an explosion of Amazon courses and eBay courses that are not written by humans that actually resell. How much would it take for us to say, create a one-page course on how to take pictures on eBay, create a one-page course on how to source for Amazon, create a one-page course on how to use KeepUp, and I'm telling you, there's going to be an explosion of this. So to me, that is the downside. And I do believe the resellers that are going to continue reselling and make reselling profitable are going to be the ones that figure it out, not the ones that pay for those courses. And this is why I love our Discord, because our Discord is a community of resellers sharing what they know and sharing their knowledge. We're not selling a course. We're not doing any of that. And I've seen some of these Discords, they're charging like $100 for a month so they can learn how to be ungated and do all this. And it's like, no, all they're doing is they got ChatGPT to write these up, and they're just profiting not on what they're selling. They're profiting on your lack of knowledge or inability or desire to gain that knowledge. Yeah. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's good. Luckily, I think, our listener base is based off all the interactions I've had with the vast majority of them. You guys are smart. You're hardworking, and I don't think most of you guys kind of fall into those traps. And if you do, I mean, you learn from that. I mean, I've definitely known people, and my dad's definitely one of them who've gotten suckered into like the too good to be true deals until, it's like, yeah, it was too good to be true because it wasn't true, and you've got to kind of walk them through the mourning process of, oh, I, wasted my money on this and it didn't actually work or help me. And some of them do help and work. But, again, thank you for all of you who listen. So, man, how have things been reselling
let's
wise
transition
for you?
here.
Yeah. Segue.
Things have been good. Things have gotten back to normal and even better than normal. I would say I'm probably doing better now than I was in Q4, which is expected. We've talked about how January is great for the secondary market, but it did get scary. There's for instance a week where I was listing every single day and the sales were just not coming through. And so I'm glad things have rebounded. Now I have had some big sales. I sold a AC unit. I sold, if you caught us on Instagram, a hat that like British, like Queen Elizabeth might have worn for like $300, and I paid $5. And I sold, what else did I sell? I sold a couple other items that were big profit. And so, like a Pachenko machine. I sold that Pachenko machine.
Oh, you sold it?
I sold it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you sold it on eBay, I'm assuming?
I did.
How was it to ship? Pretty bad?
It was a beast.
Yeah.
Beast. Because
you know what I did with my Pachenko machine?
What'd you do?
Trash can.
Oh my goodness. Didn't you have that on a YouTube video too?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I spent some time restoring it and I'm working on it. And I was like, yeah, by the time I'm done restoring this thing, I'm going to be able to make like $50. And I'm like, this thing takes up so much space and it's going to be like 12 more hours of, okay, trash can.
So
Sometimes you got to do that.
So it sold for $225 plus shipping. So it was worth my time. I just remember as I was packing this, because with a Pachenko machine, you have to bubble wrap it. Then you have to put cardboard, especially where over the glass is and where the mechanisms are. And then after that, you have to, I usually put that cellophane stuff around it to make sure everything's intact. And then luckily I already had the Pachenko box. So I just put it in the box but it was just a pain. It weighed 40 pounds. It was awkward. And I was glad that it sold. I was glad to get rid of it. But I've always said I'd rather sell a $200 pair of shoes or cowboy boots or a shirt than that. But the reason that I sold it was because, it was one of the things I sourced from the friends of the family earlier this summer that was basically free. And so I'm like, I'm not going to turn this down, So yeah, that was a beast. So there was that. I had a nice Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles haul. If you guys caught us on Instagram, local deal. I was kind of shocked. It was $50 and they had stuff original in boxes. Now TMNT, the reason I was able to find this Ninja Turtles and no one else caught it is they misspelled it.
Oh yeah.
So it was TNMT.
Did you go Fat Fingers?
No. It was a local deal. So they posted it as TNMT, and I think that's why whoever had it as a saved search didn't pick it up. Now, what was interesting, I don't know if I shared. Did I share this? That somebody was trying to buy it from them from North Carolina. I was trying to get it shipped from San Diego to North Carolina.
Huh.
But the person was a new, hadn't really sold on eBay, wasn't comfortable shipping. And again, that's the advantage. So whenever you're saying to yourself, like Orlando or even you, when you make a deal and you get a really good deal, like, why did this person sell this to me at such a great price, knowing that I'm going to profit on this? And the reason being is you as an eBay seller who has been selling for years, or maybe if you're new, but you have a great track record, you're top rated, you're going to be able to get more money for that item. You're going to save yourself a ton of time compared to this new person that, they're going to sell something and then be like, oh, how do I ship this? I remember him saying, like, I don't want to deal with the shipping. It's such a pain. But for me, shipping, no big deal, right? Shipping, I've shipped so many items. I do not stress shipping anything. My only level of like, I don't want to go there is when I get into pallets. When I get into larger items, like there's this great reseller flea market flipper who they do stuff like that all the time, and just that's not my thing. Like I have no experience in construction. I don't know how to build those things. So the reason you're able to get that extra 100, 200, sometimes 300 to 500% on an item compared to that person has that field of local deals, and it's only the city. And within that city, it's only the people that might be interested. Where when you take that item and you put it on eBay in front of 150 million buyers worldwide, obviously your potential profit is going to go up. That's why I also encourage a lot of you that you're going, hey, I feel more comfortable doing local deals. Expand, even if you don't like the shipping. Because I'm pretty sure, Mike, on that pachinko machine, you probably could have got him 4 times. Well, you would have gotten more than the trash can, but it's possible you would have gotten 4 times that amount.
No, I mean, I was looking at eBay comps. That's what I was basically
at that time.
Yeah. But even still, I do think there's a place for the local for sure. I think, yeah, there are certain like high end stuff that it's worth the ship of something big. But a lot of things that are small local stuff, like I've said, I've sold strollers locally. I've sold car seats locally. I've done lots of like some furniture pieces, things like that, where, hey, I pick something up. I'm able to pick it up for $25. It sells for 100, 125 local. And if you were to buy it on eBay, they go for about $100, $125. Mm-hmm. And it's just, by the time then you're dealing with shipping and fees. And so, yeah, if it's like a unique, very high end thing, for sure, I would definitely say, like, if I found like a rare piece of furniture or a rare, something like that, definitely I'm going eBay. But I mean, I do think there's a place for local. I think a lot of people do really well locally, especially depending on the market. I mean, that's the reason why things like antique booths and flea market type things like that, that sell furnitures and stuff do really well, is because they can turn a really good profit even with the overhead of a brick and mortar, as opposed to if they were trying to sell some of these things. And part of me is becoming more and more interested in larger items, especially maybe once I move to Texas and have a little bit more space. Yeah. But there seems to be, a pretty good amount of money in things like furniture and things that, to me, it goes back to that idea of if you're buying lots of little things, even if they're pretty profitable, but then you've got to take the pictures, do the descriptions, list, store, ship, all of the stuff that's involved with each individual listing, which, don't get me wrong, if it's things like your Hot Wheels, I mean, fantastic. I love it. I do those things all the time. But there's something to be said of, hey, I go one day for a 30-minute drive and I pick up, a couple of like mid-century modern chairs for $50 a piece, and then I sell them for $250 locally. And it's like one transaction, I make $1,000, or I make $600 in, one trip out and then meeting somebody one time. Like there's something to be said, as opposed to, yeah, I can make $600, $700, $1,000 on several eBay listings over time as well. But it's just, I don't know. So I think there is something to be said for local. Let us know below, like in the comments, do you do a lot of local? Have you had success in the furniture market? I'm not super experienced in the furniture market. I've only done a little bit there. So I don't want to like jump in if people are like, hey, this is not the time, don't do it. But it might be. I figure with prices going up, it might be the time.
Yeah. So I mean, I have more to add. I had a call with eBay ads about improving my store and stuff, and so I'll share that as part of our reseller topics.
Nice. There's
a lot of good info that they shared, or good reminders. But outside of that, garage sales have been terrible.
Yeah, the rain. I literally, my lawn. Did you see my backyard? I probably have a foot in grass that I need to take care of, and it's huge. Yeah. So I'm not doing it. It's labor intensive. So. The rain is definitely put a damper on sourcing for sure.
And it's been interesting. Like, there hasn't been much.
Yeah. I mean, again, part of it is because the rain, there's not going to be as many garage sales. I mean, estate sales are still possible. I think what makes estate sales during a time like this in San Diego, where
this is in California, but obviously,
where there's a ton of rain, is it's worth going to estate sales when there's also like 7 or 8 garage sales nearby, and you're kind of like doing the whole thing. But if you've got to drive quite a ways to get to one estate sale,
and everybody's going there,
and it's just
I agree. I see what you're saying. So that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, so sourcing. So I've actually played around a little bit recently at some thrift stores, just seeing like, okay, how are prices? I'm not like a lot of time in them, and there's still a little bit of money that can be made. And one of the things that I'm trying to think a little bit differently about with these thrift stores, because there are some that it's like, okay, they're just not being realistic, or the kind of mentality they have for resellers. But I was just thinking, like, the amount, specifically in California, living here is getting so much more expensive for me, and I know it's getting more expensive for business owners too. Like SDG&E and like gas for this area in San Diego literally doubled, and almost completely doubled energy prices for people overnight.
It's been rough. I've been like using blankets.
Yeah. The minimum.
And I know somebody did you catch that comment that one time?
Huh.
Like, if you guys are about being frugal, I'm out. Like, you guys need to make more money.
That's cool, man. I mean,
I think it was a joke, but maybe it wasn't. But
go find your baller riding in his Ferrari, talking about how he throws cash out the window because you don't care. But that's your guy, not us.
Anyways,
but yeah, I mean, you've got to be wise. You want to cut your overhead anywhere you can. You want to be smart. But these businesses, when their energy prices are doubling, when the rent, what they're paying for their spot is increasing, and minimum wage has gone up, which no matter what side of the fence you fall on that the way that impacts people, you've got to realize that makes it harder for a business. If you went from, a couple of years ago, you were paying your employees $11, $12 an hour. Now you're paying them $16.30 an hour. The prices on items have to go up. So I don't think it's all just malicious of like, hey, we're going to raise our prices. These places, they've got to make the money. And the only way they can make the money is by raising prices. And so as a reseller going in, it's just kind of that more clear sign of this just might not be feasible in our area, right? Like doing the reselling. I still find random things here and there, a pair of shoes, a certain shirt or something like that they kind of miss. But again, it's, hey, I can make $30 on this one item. But if I'm spending an hour in a thrift store to find 2 or 3 items like that,
not worth it.
It's not worth it once you consider also the amount of time. Because it sounds great of, hey, I found 3 items that sell for $25 a piece, $75 in an hour. But then you also drove there. So there's that expense and time. And then also you've got to take the pictures and list. And then you also got to do your descriptions and all of that measurements. And then you've got to pack that stuff. And then when it sells, you got to ship it. That $75 in an hour quickly goes down to like $15, $20 an hour when it's all said and done. And so you got to think about the whole process there. So that I haven't had a ton of success at thrift stores, but haven't been able to go to garage sales because of the rain. I'm hoping to get back to some garage sales. Hopefully we have some weekends here coming up with less rain. And also my third child is going to be here anytime now. We are almost to that 37 week. I think we're at like 36, 37 week. So essentially full term, like he can be here
now.
Yeah. Like, in fact, we probably need to have an off-air discussion about like pre-recording a emergency episode in case I'm in the hospital of like this is our Mike had a baby episode.
Yeah.
So we might be doing that. But so all that being said, I'm trying to remember how we handled it last time. Last time I think we were induced and we knew a couple of days ahead, but we didn't know we were going to be induced. So as a reseller, it's kind of a weird thing because when you know you're going to go on a vacation, you can kind of adjust how you're listing, how your like things are selling. Are you going to put items on sale? But when it's something like a baby, it's one thing because anything can happen. Like any emergency can happen in your life you can't plan for. But like I know within the next couple of weeks, there's going to be like a week where I'm probably not going to be able to ship stuff very easily and at least a couple of days. And so the worst case scenario is I decide, hey, I want to like really throw some items on sales in my store. Hey, look, I got seven items sold and we're going to the hospital right now. Like that'll be an awkward, message to my buyers. Like, hey, this item's going to be like 2 days late, because my wife is having a baby right now. So I'm just thinking like, I don't want to put my store on vacation mode because 3 weeks is a long time to just be like iffy, but just kind of being wise of like, okay, don't go too hard on sales right now. Try not to really get the engine going, try and make it manageable. So worst case scenario, it's only 1 or 2 items. Cause then I might feel less bad of like, hey, Orlando, would you mind pulling this item and shipping it for me? If it's 1 item, but if it's like 7, I'm not gonna do that to you.
If need be, I know what to do.
But and then overall I had some success, had some good finds on OfferUp recently. Maybe I'll talk about those another time. I feel like I've already been talking quite a bit for this update.
This is going to be a longer episode.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move it on. Let's not go too long.
Hey, but real quick, it's gonna be a longer episode. Hey, American Bubble Boy. If you have not bought American Bubble Boy bubble wrap, you definitely should. It is the cheapest, the fastest shipping, and I would say the top quality out there. And this is something I buy all the time. I'm about to end another roll, and so it's going to be something I need to purchase. And I'm actually out in the country in San Diego, but I'm able to get next day shipping. So if you haven't had the opportunity to purchase from American Bubble Boy, go to the link below, and in that link it helps us out, and then it helps you out because you get your product faster. You get great product at a great price, and somewhere that you're going to always know, hey, I can go to this company and I can get my stuff pretty quick and it's quality stuff. So check them out, AmericanBowlboy.com in the link below. Yeah. All right, so random stories. So do you want to share yours first?
Sure. Yeah. So couple of things, kind of going along with what I said earlier about considering some bigger items. I've bought 2 trailers that I've used for reselling and potentially for this big move I've got coming up. The first one I bought, I got a pretty good deal on it. It was pretty awesome. Talked about it in episode or something earlier. And then a second one I bought off of a friend who knew I was planning on moving, but also knew I was a reseller and I would be using it for that. And I got a crazy good deal on that trailer as well. And one of the things is when you're buying trailers, and I'm sure it's the same with things like cars. I know it's the same with things like cars. But there's this weird thing that kind of I've noticed in that community. So I have a friend of mine who sells a lot of pit bikes on like OfferUp, those kinds of things, Facebook Marketplace. And I asked him because he finds like crazy good deals. He doesn't live in my city. He lives somewhere where people do a lot of dirt biking. And pit bikes are like little tiny motorcycles that are like 125 cc's, but they look like they're for a kid. Okay. So they're like big enough that like I could go like 40, 50 miles an hour in the desert, but it's like a little tiny bike. So people are into them. They're pretty fun. And he often is able to snag them for like $400, and then he sells them for like anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000. So he's able to turn pretty good profits. But
he knows how to like fix them and touch
sometimes
them
they need some fix. Yeah. So, but usually they don't need a lot. A lot of times he's just constantly browsing and he finds good deals and he waits until like, cause if it's summertime, people aren't riding, and in the wintertime they are. So he buys them in the summer and flips them and sells them in the winter. And anyways, one of the things I noticed is like, he does a lot of these sales and they don't have their like pink slips. And I'm like, okay, well maybe that doesn't matter, or they're not registered. Maybe it doesn't matter if you don't have the paperwork. If it's just like an off-road thing, people don't really care. But if it's an on-road thing, people are definitely going to want, like, paperwork matters a little bit more. But then as I've looked at various things, like even stuff like trailers and camping trailers, pop-up tent trailers, different things like that, because there's definitely money that can be made. A lot of times these people are not selling them with all the paperwork. It's like bill of sale only. And this is maybe a place for me to say like, hey, if you got information on this, let me know. Maybe it's state dependent too.
We could run like an underground black market.
No. I mean, I'm not wanting to do that. But when I bought my last trailer for my friend, he basically sold it as like he had the registration, but he hadn't even put it in his name yet. He's like, yeah, the guy I bought it from, here's all, like, it's basically still from him. So as long as you get it to the DMV in the next, however many days it is, and just register it in your name, you'll basically just make it seem like you bought it from him. Like the paperwork, it will be like that. Like he acted as a middleman and he never actually got the trailer registered in his name. So when we registered the trailer, it was like, you pay quite a bit of money to get it registered, get the title, all of that. But I was thinking like, it seems like when I was driving here today, there's a guy I noticed out in front of his house every couple of weeks. He's got a different travel trailer, like a camping trailer in front of his house, and they're for sale. Opened up. I've seen people sometimes walking in them, and it's always a different one. Like sometimes the same one will be there for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then it's a different one. So I'm like, this guy is flipping trailers. Like they sell for like anywhere from like, he lists them anywhere from like $4,000 to like $10,000, depending on what type of trailer it is. And sometimes I drive by, I'm like, oh, that's a pretty cool like camping trailer. So this guy somehow is snagging these at a cheaper price.
Are you seeing this on the street?
Yeah. He sells them on the street.
I know what you're talking about.
On Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every single time. I thought the same thing.
So my thought is there's no way he's spending the time going to the DMV.
I think he's renting the space. That's what I think he's doing. It could be.
But even still, like somebody is able, because these aren't like, it's not like he's got a lot. Like this isn't like new trailers. These are old, janky, beat up trailers. But it's
always a new one every week.
It's always new. So I'm wondering, like, do people sell things like dirt bikes, stuff like that, boat type things, trailers? And let me know in the comments, because I'd want to learn more about this. But without getting it registered, because once you start dealing with, now I've got to go to the DMV and I've got to get it registered and I've got to get the title put in my name. By the time you pay all the fees on that, it's eating into way too much of your profit and it's taking too much time. So I'm like, these have to be selling with just a bill of sale only, or they've got the registration, but they're not transferring it into their name and they're kind of just acting as a middleman into the next person.
So like wholesaling.
Not wholesaling exactly, because they're just not doing the paperwork. It's like if I sold something to you and then you sold it to somebody else, but it was as if I sold it to the other person because you never did any of the paperwork. So you didn't have to pay the fees. You didn't pay the taxes.
So people do that with houses. Like if you ever see those boards on the street, and it's like buying houses, buying houses full cash, calls this number.
Mm-hmm.
That's what wholesaling is. So what they do is they find a house that's on the market, and then they find a buyer and they upcharge the buyer 5 to 10%. And then they end up being the middleman.
That would just be like brokering a sale, though.
Yeah, but it's kind of the same idea, though.
I don't know. It's a little different because you're taking on the risk when you actually, if I buy a trailer for, let's say, $5,000 and I'm planning on selling it for
true.
And I'm hoping I'm just not going to register this, because at a certain point, if you don't register it, like, you're limiting the number of buyers you can get. I don't know. I mean, let me know below. Maybe this is state dependent. But if you've sold bigger things, like whether it's cars, because you see all the time, if you're on OfferUp on those things, a lot of times it's like no paperwork or no registration.
Are you looking at, is this something you want to do?
I'm considering, because, like, again, one of those things, if I could flip one trailer or something like that a month, I'm just using that as an example because I have 2 of them, and I could easily make anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 per trailer of mine right now, profit based off what I bought them for. So if I could do anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 a month on average in just trailer costs, and it's literally one transaction. I buy it from somebody.
Every Pierce the Podcast episode would be like, what trailer did you sell this week?
People were already like, you guys became the Fifth Wheel episode, or the Fifth Wheel podcast. But it might be something worth doing. I mean, I'd have to learn a little bit more about the whole process, but I just am curious. I guess I could have done a little bit more research, but I'm sure some of our listeners have some information on what is it like selling things like that with just a bill of sale? Is that doable? Do people care? Does that limit your buyers? Because it's like when you sell something, if you didn't have a certificate of authenticity, like, hey, I've got this art piece, no certificate of authenticity. Like, there's going to be some buyers who are like, I don't care. Like, I know it's probably real. I know how to know it's real. And other people are like, nope, I refuse if it doesn't have. So it just would be interesting if people have some experience with that. Yeah.
Well, and it's all good. I mean, this is the beauty of reselling, is that it opens your mind to other business, right? I mean, or entrepreneurship, whatever it is. I
mean, it's still resell, man. I want to flip some trailers.
I mean, I had goals. I had goals at the end of 2022 to buy 2 vehicles and do 2-row. But then the used car market skyrocketed, and I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen anytime soon. And on my property, could I rent space? Possibly. To have people store. I could. I mean, I remember one house that I almost moved into when I was looking for a place, and the guy literally cut his backyard by 3/4, and the 3/4 of his backyard, he was just storing trailers and boats and everything for people.
Yep,
and just charging them
$50 a month, and he got 10 of them back there.
You gotta, build up your security and beef up the cameras and your Second Amendment. Like, it's. There's a lot of expense. So with everything, there's a learning curve, right? There's a learning curve. You got to figure things out. So I don't know. Hopefully, you get some feedback, and maybe
I need to go talk to the trailer guy.
It's interesting, folks.
A little sketch.
It is. It's so funny that you and I both know exactly what we're talking about, because I see that thing all the time, and I'm like, I wonder how much money he's making.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but have you thought like, hey, this is a reselling opportunity?
It's prime. The issue with those kind of things, though, is that he's on a street that cars are passing all the time.
Yeah, but how much of I feel like most of those sales are coming from things like OfferUp, Craigslist.
Yeah. It's not like somebody's getting. Well, I don't know. Who knows?
Some people will stop. But.
All right. So this was an interesting. I'll share 2 things. Let me share my first one, and then we'll say on the. So I don't know if you guys caught, but on Whatnot, I scheduled an auction. And then I canceled it. And it's because I had a revelation, not a spiritual revelation, not a Jesus moment. But what happened was, I'm like, wait, I can do a Whatnot and I could spend an hour. And the only benefit of that hour would be all the cool people that would jump on the live. All you guys that would be on there. Like, that would be the best part of it. The other part of it, having the whole time trying to sell everything, and then after it sells, having to pack everything, and the packing for one night is the worst part to me. It is it's just painful, because a lot of the items you sell, like, unless you're getting people that are bidding high on certain items, you're making less money on Whatnot unless you sell in volume. And so the last 2-3 weeks I've been running auctions on eBay. So, for example, I had a few Breyer horses that they didn't have the Breyer stamp, and I didn't know if they were Breyer, but I thought, and I did everything. I did my research, and I'm like, I'm just going to throw an auction at, $4.99 a piece. And I already made profit on these. And sure enough, 3 of them sold for like $7, whatever. And it wasn't a big money maker, but it's kind of what would have happened with Whatnot. Had I gone on Whatnot, people would have paid $5-7, right? And then I ran another auction. I had these vintage plush that haven't moved in like 2 years. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna run on eBay. And sure enough, it sells on eBay. So I'm like, okay, so I can passively run auctions on eBay, which has a ton more buyers going to it. Or I can go on Whatnot, and the gamble with Whatnot is, do you have the right people that want to buy the items that you're selling?
Yeah, I think the benefit of the Whatnot auction is the fact that you're not creating listings, right? I think that's where...
But you still are a little bit. Like, you still, either you're doing it on the spot,
right,
or you're doing it beforehand, right? And so... I'm beginning to lean more on what is selling Whatnot is the personality of the people, right? Unless you have like really good items that you bought for really cheap, it's going to be the pull of your audience. So I know I had said in I think it's the first episode about reselling 2023 that I was going to do a Whatnot auction each week. It's not going to happen. It just wasn't worth my time. I thought about it for a good half hour, and I thought, you know what, I might as well, if I'm really trying to move inventory. And here's the thing, I also didn't want to sell stuff that I'm not sure about how it's going to resell. Like if you're coming to my Whatnot auctions, know that you're buying for yourself, or that maybe something that I don't know, that these items are going to sell for more. And I'm telling you,
when we sold that goat skin jacket.
Yeah, I know. We sold it for like 70. It's worth like $400 or $500, maybe more. So do know that, and I've said this before, I've said this 100 times, most resellers that are selling on Whatnot are reselling because either A, they got a really low cost, like they got it at the bins, or they have a special deal with a wholesaler, or they're trying to offload inventory that they can't get rid of themselves. So be careful. Now, Mike and I will be doing Whatnot auctions if we do some eBay store buyouts again, which I do think is going to happen. I think in the next few months, we'll probably buy out another store and we'll probably do a Whatnot. That was fun. That I really enjoyed. So stay tuned for that. All right, just you know what? A real quick story. Okay, let me read a paragraph from this buyer, and you're going to know where it's going to go. And I'm just going to end it there. So I sold the jacket. And look at this length of this first message. Look at this other message. Okay.
That's a lot.
We had a whole mini-sode on this, so I don't want to delve into this, but said, hey, Londo, the parka... I hate it when eBay does it. The parka, or it scrolls up when it shouldn't. The parka arrived about an hour ago. The mailing label on your description said I paid for 2-day priority mail, which turned out to be a 6-day, and actually slower than if you had sent it ground. Thus, I'm requesting a refund for the cost of the 2-day priority since I did not receive it the day I paid for. Which, what? No, priority does not get a ship to the East Coast from California in 2 days. Okay, so the message doesn't stop there. Unfortunately, that's not the worst. Despite your condition description that there were no rips and no holes, the parka, or the parks in this person's case, does in fact have a 1/2 inch rip in the upper right chest area and a small hole in the flap. I can send pics if you need them. That's kind of all right. Thanks. I'm not so much worried about the small flap hole, but the rip in the chest will have to be professionally repaired to keep it from tearing any further. Down is tricky to work with, so I don't know how much it will cost, if even I can get it repaired. I would like our transaction to end up a win-win situation. What solutions do you offer to avoid a return with a full refund? And all I said is, hey, thanks for reaching out. Unfortunately, I do full return refunds as I only do full return refunds as I use them as opportunities to train. If missed, below is a link. Orlando. Then they said, okay, where do I start the process for a full refund? Do you know who pays for the shipping? I'm like, return is covered by us. Thank you. Ghost.
They haven't returned it?
Nope.
All right.
Hasn't messaged me, haven't said anything. And what I'm telling you is silent treatment is the best option. people that do multiple paragraph, they're fishing. They're fishing. They're seeing what they can get. This person was trying to get a partial refund. Win-win. It's not a win. If I'm giving you a partial refund on something I know was good, that's a loss to me, not a win. And so always be careful out there. Have a return policy, because I'm telling you, a return policy, I would say 99% of the time works in your favor than against you. All right. Hey, before we get into our reseller topics, if you haven't jumped on over into our Patreon to say, to just say a thank you or just support, we always appreciate it. Mike and I were talking about this before the podcast, how our stages in life are just crazy right now. Even recording a podcast, it takes a lot of time from our families and from reselling. And Mike and I have always said, man, what would we be able to do if we had the time to just step away from everything and just focus on content, drop YouTube videos every week outside of the podcast and everything. And we've tried, but just life is too hectic. But those of you that support us on Patreon, help us, allow us to continue creating content. So if you haven't yet, go to patreon.com/Pure Podcast, or the link below. Just for $5.55 a month, you're able to support our Discord, our Patreon, our podcast, and help us keep moving. And along with that, there's the bonus of jumping on the Discord, which I love the Discord discussions lately. It's been really good. Just about, how to source. Here's an item. I'm trying to figure this out. What's the best way to ship? Where do I find this? It's been really good. Right. And even if you're a lurker, you're going to learn, right? Because there's so much information coming through that Discord for just $5.55 a month. It's definitely, I would say, not even a deal. It's a steal. So jump on over and help us out. And if you haven't followed us on social media, we are Pure Hustle Podcast on all platforms except for Twitter. We are Pure Hustle Cast. If you haven't given us a call yet, you can always give us a call, 619-738-1170. That's 619-738-1170. Or shoot us an email at purehustlepodcast@gmail.com. And as always, if you're listening to the podcast and you haven't caught us on YouTube, just jump on over, subscribe, and hit that like button and that bell notification to be notified whenever we drop episodes outside of the podcast. And as always, grateful for all the Apple iTunes review. It keeps us the top reselling podcast out there. So if you haven't yet and you enjoyed the podcast, jump on over, throw in that 5 stars, do a quick write-up of what you enjoy, and it definitely helps us in that algorithm. Yeah. All right, we got some good stuff. You stuck with us this far. We got some good stuff to talk about here.
We've learned some things from an eBay call. eBay's 2-year history. Gen Zs are into flip phones, and Amazon laying off another 18,000 employees. All of this and more on Reseller Topics.
All right, so this was...
I called it Topics. Ugh. Reseller News.
So did you get the same message I got? That eBay wanted to schedule an appointment with me to discuss my store?
No.
It was like out of the blue. And maybe because my sales weren't great. I don't know what happened.
It's like getting called into the principal's office?
I don't know what it was. But, I got the offer, and it was basically I scheduled an appointment with somebody who works with eBay. And it was more eBay ads. They wanted to talk about promoted listings and so on. But I figured... What do I get? What do I lose? Right. And my experience with eBay has generally been is that we know more about eBay than the people that work for eBay. That's generally been the case. Would you disagree?
Yeah, we definitely know more about the reselling experience of it.
The main function of eBay.
Yeah, but not eBay. That'd be like saying like customers at Starbucks know more about Starbucks than like the operators of Starbucks.
No. But we know more about the reselling component, which is the what eBay is about. Yeah.
Right? I get what you're saying. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
All right.
I'm just being difficult.
But I'm always willing to learn. As you get older in life, as no matter what, you should never turn away an opportunity to learn. And even if it just reinforces what you already know.
All right. What'd you learn?
So, sorry. So a few things here. What was interesting was we're going through my store and they're like, oh, it's a really good listing. Oh, you already do promoted listings? Oh, that's great that you do free returns. Like it was kind of, they couldn't find anything to help me. And so I was like,
yeah, say it. Say this is the best store you've ever seen.
No, she did say out of most resellers, you're probably one of the most knowledgeable we've come across, which is interesting because I don't know what led them to call me, but I'm thankful. So here's some things though I did gain. Okay. From this, it was worth it. It was totally worth it. And they're going to do a follow-up phone call with me to see how my store is doing in a couple weeks. So this is primo service. Okay. Now, number one, I asked them about promoted listings. Is it necessary? Because a lot of people on YouTube say, I don't sell in a certain, category that's highly competitive. And so I don't need promoted listings. And so this individual obviously worked for eBay ads, but they said promoted listings are necessary, but not necessarily promoted listings advanced, which is a pay-per-click. So what pay-per-click is people, you pay for the amount of times that somebody clicks on your item, even if it doesn't sell. So you're trying to promote a highly sought out item to make that quick sale. Promoted listings standard is, it just puts it at the top of the search. Right. And the higher the percentage, the more chances that yours is going to be one of the first items on that search. So, she checked my items and I thought I was at 2% across the board. I'm at 4%. I don't know when I changed that.
Oh.
Maybe it was late evening. And
no wonder sales are coming in better for you.
I don't know what it was. But here's my question. So I said, listen, I sell unique secondary items. So what I mean is, do I need to have promoted listings higher if I'm selling a Rain Spooner shirt? But most people that are looking for a Rain Spooner shirt, they're not just going to put in Rain Spooner shirt. They're going to put in Rain Spooner San Francisco Giants, or they're going to put in Rain Spooner Dolphins, or they're going to put in Rain Spooner Melikimiki Maka, whatever it is. And they agreed with me that no, you don't have to have a higher promotional, standard rate if you're selling items that are very niche that people are looking for, but you still need to do promoted listings. So I was like, all right. So that we knew. Okay. Promoted standards still good, but not needed a higher rate of selling unique items, which I just said. The third thing was items do become stale though. So this has changed from my initial conversation, and people in the Discord were having a conversation about this, which I thought was great. Items do become stale, even if they're promoted, if they do not sell within 90 days, and it begins to weigh down the store.
I think this is probably like the key takeaway of it, because I would say, what would it hurt unless you've got thousands of listings? I think I'm going to go through and find anything that's over 90 days and into the listing, sell similar, but change something. Because sometimes I feel
that was the next thing I was going to tell you.
Right. But like, I feel like eBay knows if you just kind of are trying to fake it and you're just like relisting the same thing and nothing changes, you're just kind of refreshing the listing.
So let me create a distinction between the two. So there's relisting an item and there's sell similar an item.
Right.
They're different. So we've shared this, but this was reinforced. So what they said is, if you relist an item, it's still a stagnant item, because what you're doing is you're relisting, but all the history
That's
of
what
it,
I'm saying. You're refreshing.
Yeah, the amount of impressions. So that means the amount of time somebody's looked at an item or clicked on it is staying with you. But if you end the listing, you do sell similar, it is brand new. It's as if you were listing items.
But so I think that helps in one way, because if your store is stale, that might help get things moving again. It might get your item back up to the top. But if it's an item that has sat for more than 90 days and hasn't sold, then there's potentially something wrong with your listing, or there's not a demand for it. So I would say probably to get the best of both worlds on this is to do the end listing, sell similar, because then you're getting that benefit of it almost as if it's a new listing. But
no, it's like the way she said it is as if you just were listing brand new items.
Fair enough. But even still, if you don't change anything though, if maybe it's your description, maybe it's but if nothing else, the price, right? Like your price probably needs to come down.
Yeah. Your price, your pictures, you may need a return policy. She had said, she's like, I said, well, is price the main thing? She's like, no, it's not price. Like it could be that you don't offer returns. It could be that you don't offer free returns. It could be that you're not using a white image. She was very big on, a lot of people look for items via Google. And if you don't have a white background, Google will not pick up your item. It'll reject it.
Yeah. I think those are all good things but I guess the point I'm trying to make is for instance, if I've got a snow globe on the table and I'm like, I've got a snow globe for sale and I'm trying to get someone to buy it, and 90 days has gone by and I've got this snow globe and I've been trying to sell it, and I'm like, all right, maybe I need to try a different one. I take it off the table then I put it back on the table and I say, I've got a new snow globe to set. Like if nothing has changed, the demand isn't there. Like, so something like maybe it's the way, like the description or the price, like something other than just like, I think you get half the benefit from sell similar because you get, it's back in your store isn't stale. But I think if you really want it to move and not sit stagnant for another 90 days, something's got to change.
No, I agree with you. The only thing is that's different is I think you're leading to that the price is going to sell it. But the difference being is that you're not an algorithm.
No, but if you've got everything else, but I'm saying all things the same, like I've got the right pictures, it's white background. I've got all of the item specifics.
Yes, if it's the last thing, yeah, price is a good thing. But she did say that your item will not end up on the first page if you don't have, it's like the items that have returns, the items that have white background, the items that are priced competitively, those that are top rated sellers, top rated seller plus, those are going to always be the ones that the algorithm gives priority to. And if they have conversion, if they have good sell through rate of their items. So I thought that was great. Now, so it was interesting because I even said, so let's say somebody can't list, right? Because they get busy, they're caught up in the day. Is doing the end listing sell similar the same thing as listing? And the consensus was yes. So I thought that was interesting. So if you're ever stuck and you haven't listed in a day, find the items that you need to and do sell similar. Now, let me tell you guys how to find those items. And this was interesting. So there's the listing quality report. And we haven't talked about that much on the podcast because I personally haven't felt the need to, because I'm not a big fan of having people go backwards in their reselling and go through all their listings and spend all the time. I'm more of like, sell that stuff, find better quality items and do better listings and move forward. So there's different perspectives, but the listing quality report is going away. And I said, it's interesting. You're pushing me to a report that is kind of like the listing quality report, but that thing's going to be gone. They're like, yeah, we're really sad that eBay's doing away with it. But she found me another report that should help you. So if you go to eBay, okay, and you go to the marketing and you go to the promotions and you go to your run promotion. So let's say you already have it 4% across the board like I do, right? On that promotion, you click it and it'll say generate report. You click on that generate report, it'll have every single item that you're promoting, and then you can look at the impressions. And her suggestion was anything, for me at least, that has anything that is less than 100 or 200 impressions, those are the items that you need to end and do sell similar. So
not if they have too many, because what if it's been something that's been there for a year and it's got 1,000 impressions?
No, she just said the lower items. Like she didn't say no. She said you need to prioritize the ones with less impressions, because the ones with a lot of impressions, they're not hurting as much as the ones that have hardly any impressions.
Well, fair enough. That makes sense.
And so, that's something I'm going to start doing. And again, it depends how big your store is. My store is massive, so how much time am I going to spend looking through all the impressions? I don't know. I may do it.
Sort it.
Was that?
You just sort it.
You could sort it. Yeah, it's an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, so you just sort it. You do anything over 90 days, and then you go impressions, and then you could even easily set up a formula where it's like, if it's under 100, make it turn red. If it's under 200, make it turn yellow. If it's under 300, make it turn green. And then you just, like, these are the ones I need to.
I know, but then having to find those items, you have to go and you have to search it. Then you have to delist it. Where the way I do it is, let's say I want to move my Hilo Hattie Hawaiian shirts. I'll just type in Hilo Hattie. I'll have like 40 of them, and I'll just end all of those. And so similar all of those. And that's like within 5 minutes I can get it done, instead of each individual item. Does that make sense? Like, it takes a lot more time to go on the impressions report, then find that item on eBay, and then end the listing on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it probably makes sense.
So anyways, I thought that was really helpful. The impressions report was, I've heard it before, but the fact that there's somebody from eBay saying this is how to do it was good. It was good. So hopefully that helps some of you out there.
Yeah.
And this other thing was interesting. I know we all know this. Maybe I'm last to it, but I sold something today and I couldn't find it. I'm like, what is this thing? I have 20 in-home totes, and I had to go through every single one of those totes, and I couldn't find it. So I'm like, I wonder if it sold earlier. And the beauty of it is, I don't know if you know this, but eBay has a 2-year history now. So on eBay, I was able to go, oh, hey, I sold this back in July. That's why I don't have it anymore. So if you ever lost an item and you want to make sure that it's sold now, you can go back 2 years. So I thought that was great. We're going super over. So a couple of things. I want to share this because there's a lot of discussion on Discord about the Lucid program. So Lucid program is basically new ways of packaging if you want to sell things through Germany and so on, and that's being required. But there's new information that came out about the international program, and this came from a discussion board on eBay, and it came from an eBay rep. And so people are saying, hey, do I need to do this special packing? Do I need to get certified with Europe? Do I need to do all this? And they said no. So let me read to you what was stated by eBay. So, hey, so-and-so, this is a person that was having a discussion with eBay. That's a great question. As part of eBay international shipping, we will assume all responsibilities associated with the export of your item. This means eBay will be responsible for filing all documentation and complying with U.S. export regulations on your behalf. We'll also be covering sellers on the Germany Packaging Act, so sellers will not be required to provide a Lucid ID. I also ran this question by one of our colleagues on the shipping team, and here was their response. The recycling packaging fees are related to the Germany Packaging Act, so it is correct that EIS handles those. So EIS is being eBay's new international shipping. The seller is not responsible for anything that happens or is required after proper delivery to the shipping hub. So I know there's a lot of, I've seen YouTube videos about this and so on. So according to eBay, you don't have to worry about it as long as you do global shipping or international standard shipping and eBay international shipping. Now, the other thing that I thought was fascinating, we've talked about this before. The reason why I'm not jumping into the new eBay international shipping is because there's a dollar limit on the items that will be sold via that program. And it was 150. And then I talked to an eBay rep and they said, oh, we're expanding. But then on the same board, somebody asked any news on when the $500 limit will start. It was supposed to start in this January. Granted, the month's not over yet, but correct information on the help page would be nice. eBay rep responded by saying, I got it right here. We're discussing the new eBay international shipping. As of this moment, it is not at the limit has not gone up to the 500. We're still working on that process. I'm just summarizing. And so basically they said they're not there yet. Let me get the direct language. Let me see. Give me 2 seconds. Let me scroll here. There's so much information on this page. So if I don't find it, I don't find it. But yeah, basically that there's still the $150 limit. Some countries do have a $500 limit. So basically saying, hey, not everybody needs to jump on board, onto that program. So this is, again, if you're you're like, hey, I want to get into the eBay international shipping program, I would just wait, because on global shipping, I've had all my items pretty much that, sell really well be over that $150. And I would hate for sellers to lose that ability to make those good sales because they jumped on over. So that's just an FYI. All right. Do you want to talk real quick about Gen Z and flip phones?
Yeah, it's just kind of an interesting thing. I don't know how much of it will be specifically a BOLO, but I think it might end up becoming a BOLO. So there is a big push for Gen Z, or many people in Gen Z who are kind of going back to like vintage analog style life of things. Part of it's trendy. Some of it I think is actually good and maybe more serious, but it's things like record players, right? Or typewriters, and now flip phones. And one of the reasons why these things are becoming more popular is I think some in the Gen Z, even millennials, are kind of recognizing like, hey, even though technology is super useful and powerful, it's also controlling my life. And I think a lot of them, because for us, I think people in our age bracket, even us we can be like overwhelmed with social media and technology, and it can kind of consume our lives. But imagine growing up and from the time you were, 3 years old, you've had a tablet in your face and you've always just been consuming YouTube videos and social media, and you've known nothing else your entire school. for some of them, they're starting to realize like it's controlling their lives. Like it is the addiction. It is the thing. And so one of the articles that I shared in our Discord that was kind of going around is that a lot of Gen Zers are doing things, some of them even where they'll use their smartphone for certain parts of the day. And then when they're like just going out with friends or doing stuff, they take just their flip phone. And the idea is I can get a phone call if I need it. I can text somebody if I need to, but it's not as like intense of a text messaging thing. And there's even a camera, as opposed to I'm sitting hanging out
They're
with my
actually
friends.
sending pictures from those terrible cameras to each other.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too, is there's one aspect of it of like people are doing this because like, hey, like I just want to kind of go back to some normal, right? Like some old school. And then there's the trendiness of it. Like, look, I use a flip phone and I use flip phone pictures, or so there is that element. But anyways, all that to be said, there's a whole lot, I think, involved in this trend. But I think there will be some. I mean, if you're hanging out with a bunch of your friends and you're all, I don't know, anywhere from 16 to 22, and you're hanging out and you're doing the flip phone thing, and somebody's got the brand new flip phones that have come out, because there's companies now that are selling flip phones again. Like the brand new, you get brand new flip phones. But how much cooler are you if you're like, hey, I've got like a 2000,
my vintage Samsung.
I've got a 2003 Nokia flip. Blah, blah, blah. I've got a 2007 Razr. And it almost becomes like who's got the most unique, because think about all of the stuff that they're into with like band shirts and stuff like that is they want unique. And so, yeah, I can have the new phone that AT&T is putting out that's a flip phone, but it's basically just, everybody has it. But I want like, what I'm gonna have the phone like my dad had.
Well, here's the other reason too. So it's funny because you're talking about like it's a trendy thing, and they quoted a Gen Zer here. I feel so old saying that, but they said, I think people are going to go out more and more with flip phones just because, this is from a CNN article, they're going to go out more and more with flip phones just because it's so fun and nostalgic and honestly a vibe. That's so Gen Z. Now, here's the other one. This is to think overall. Okay. So when you're thinking about, and this is kind of like a bolo, when you're thinking about flip phones, right? The reason a lot of people like flip phones too is the security, right? Basically, are these devices, these smartphones, they're spying on all of us. Like the reality is it's tracking everywhere we're going. It knows where we're spending money. Now with AI models, there's predictability about what ads to show to people. I mean, people are all the time getting their clouds getting hacked. People are losing their crypto keys. Like it's crazy, right? So the CNN article, the article is called, if you want to read it over, Gen Z has a new vintage technology to obsess over. And in it, they talk about the idea of security. They say maybe one reason Gen Z yearns for the 90s and 2000s era is the privacy and the absence of carefully curated images. It's social media at its most casual. Photo dumps with candid pictures, and Be Real, which is one of the most popular social media apps now again, which you only like post once a day, and it has to be like a real post that asks its users once a day to take a real-time selfie and post it within 2 minutes.
Never even heard of that.
Yeah, no, it was huge. It was like number one at one time in the market. I looked into
just a selfie. Like, let me take a selfie.
Well, it's something that you're doing, like just something that you're doing it just once a day. That's it.
Even still, like, look, we're not that obsessed with ourselves. You're only going to obsess over yourself once a day. Who can do it best?
I listen, I don't know. I know Gary Vee was pushing it like years ago, and now it became a reality. So now the other thing is, for example, I don't know if you guys know, but Polaroid is making more of a comeback. And the reason being is people, whatever reason, they don't want their pictures to end up on the cloud. They don't want it to end up on the internet. And so if you take a Polaroid picture, that's it. There's just that one Polaroid picture that came out, and the only person that has access to it is you, right? Unless you misplace it or you lose it. So that's another thing. So think about devices like that. Somebody on our Discord had mentioned voice recorders. And I'm like, why are voice recorders worth so much money? Because my cell phone can do a voice recording.
Yeah, we talked about it last episode. Yeah.
Right. And the idea is it's security, right? Like no one else has access to the information. Let's say you're doing interviews for journalism, or you're on an investigation or whatever it is, right? There's that security that's provided.
I think somebody even in our YouTube channel comment made that same kind of comment on there. So
really?
Yeah. So that goes to show, like, if you haven't been dropping comments below, please do so, because you guys know a whole lot more about a lot of things than we do, right? So we might be talking about something and you're like, yeah, you know a little bit about this Gen Z phone thing, but let me tell you, I've sold these types of models and these are selling good, or here's where you can pick them up. Like, put those comments in. You guys know this stuff, a lot of these things better than we do. So use those comments. It's very helpful.
All right. So keep an eye. That's a bolo. Now, the last thing I want to just say, and we'll move quick. So Amazon today, when we're recording this episode, laid off another 18,000 employees. The only reason I bring this up is just be careful out there, like we've been saying for a long time. Amazon arbitrage and the Amazon numbers haven't been great. Okay. I do believe that this is going to be the year where the secondary market definitely rises. I don't know when that's going to be. It could be early 2024. But, everything I've read about recessions and everything going on, and we have been in a recession. I will argue that to my dying day. And we are supposed to be going into a recession. And people are like, oh, the jobs market is strong. But the job market is always the last thing to fall off in a recession once we found things really get interesting. And so, just be careful. Make sure you're watching your bottom line in reselling. Make sure you're sourcing things that you'll move, and keep stacking that cash, because I think there's going to be some great opportunities around the corner. Yeah. All right. That ends our reseller topics.
All right. Time for the moment you've all been waiting for.
Bolo. What's your bolo?
Yeah.
What's your bolo?
Chicken eggs. No, I'm just kidding.
Have you seen those videos where they play the Narcos music? And it's like people selling eggs?
Somebody's gonna listen to this like 3 years from now. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Chicken eggs?
So not chicken eggs. But okay, so mine is being that estate sales have been a little bit more successful than garage sales for me recently, and even looking at thrift stores. I don't want to get too heavily into China, like fine China and things like that, because I've had some success. Sometimes it's not worth it, but I've learned a couple of brands recently, and I've had some success with some of these. So 3 brands that, I'll just give you 2 brands. 2 brands that I've been successful. One, I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure.
You're gonna kill the market, Mike.
But Rosenthal is a German-made China brand, and they make really good porcelain. They also have like drinkware that they make. And the nice thing is that they all have their logos on the bottom of their prints. They're pretty easy to tell if it's from them. It should say Germany. It might not, but it'll at least say Rosenthal. And then they have different floral prints, and you can kind of see like there's some differences between the designers. Like some of them are going to be, did you sell one? Is that what you're showing me right now? An offer on what?
$420.
Nice.
Sorry.
You'll talk about that in a second.
Time to celebrate.
So the Rosenthal can be really good. And then also Russell Wright, they have Iroquois, I think is the style that it's called, pottery and fine china. Anyways, one of the things I've realized with this, one of the mistakes I've made with China in the past is I've tried to sell it like kind of as sets, especially if you got like a complete set of it. But I've found that you're going to sell quicker and for a higher profit if you break it into pieces, because people are looking for replacements far more often than they're looking to buy an entire set. Because unless somebody's like, I need the mid-century modern by this designer of the Rosenthal that has this print, and they've somehow saw it somewhere and they want that whole set, usually it's because they already have that set and something broke and they're replacing it. So you're more likely to sell, and I've had a lot more success recently selling individual pieces. So the bolo and the tip is Rosenthal and Russell Wright. Just look up the logos. They're pretty easy to find. So when you're at thrift stores and you're at estate sales, just look at the bottom of plates. Look at the bottom. If you see this, it's probably going to be profitable. And they are they sell much better in individuals, which is nice too when you're buying, because if you don't have a complete set, you can often negotiate a little bit better. You're at an estate sale and you're like, well, there's actually only 3 plates here, or there's only 7 instead of the 8, and you're missing a cup also, or so you can tend to negotiate a little bit better, knowing that it's not going to matter because you're breaking it up anyways.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you?
I got to tell you with the China though, just make sure you have all the packing material before.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you already have it and already have the material, because.
But that's what most things though. I mean, like,
no, but especially with China though, like
paper and bubble wrap. I mean,
yeah, but you got to float it, and there's actually like special stuff you can use that makes it easier.
But if you're only selling like a plate or a cup, it's way easier. I think the hard part with the shipping China, yeah, it's been a nightmare when I've shipped, like I'm shipping 8 plates and 8 bowls and 8 cups, and I'm trying to get it all in one box. Oh. That's terrible. But if you're selling 1 cup or 1 plate or 1 bowl, that's easy.
I have a bunch of China sitting on a shelf that I have not touched. I bought it like 2 years ago. I think I dropped like 150.
You should eat off of it. You should just be like, when I eat my cereal in the morning, I'm like,
light scratch marks from dining.
I mean, if you're not using the china, what's the point?
That is true. No, so what I was showing Mike, I got a super sweet offer on a slot car, and we're just gonna make that the bolo.
Nice.
So it was a nice offer, like $400. So you can't beat that. Now, here's the thing with slot cars. The reason I'm bringing it up, not just because of the sale, but because I didn't like my other bolo, so I'm just gonna use this bolo, is that I'm finding that they're becoming more scarce. Like there was a time 5 is more scarce per programmer. Yeah. There was a time 5 years ago where you would find YouTube videos and people are like, oh, I sold this slot car over here and I sold this slot car over here. And I don't see those anymore. When I'm sourcing, I hardly ever see slot cars. And so if you see one, it's always worth a look up because, you never, it might be a more modern one, but if you can find one that has like the manual and has the box and has everything with it, it's definitely worth a lookup. And generally, even if you could just buy the box, I'd buy the box because, for example, when I picked up all those Ninja Turtle items, the boxes were worth more than the Ninja Turtle item itself. Now, it's a little different than a slot car, but the reason people are looking for slot cars is because they're non-existent anymore. Okay. And especially in good shape, because remember, these are items that people played with as kids. And so they probably got destroyed. Now, luckily mine was a super clean one and it had the manual and it had everything. So it's all good to go. But definitely keep an eye. If you're wondering what a slot car looks like, just go to eBay, type in vintage slot car. And actually, let me just do that live. Let's just see what comes up for sold for vintage slot cars. But they generally there's a whole
this makes very riveting podcast.
Does it? But look, even right here, look at these sales. Like 2 for $56, just random pizza for $300, another one for $50, one for $350. So look for AMT is one brand, AFX is another brand. I've sold some AFX before, and so those are the two ones. Aurora is another one that you want to look for. I mean, look at these comps; they're not bad. Yeah. Right? I mean, just the shells of some of them. So keep an eye out for vintage slot cars.
Nice.
So, all right. What are you looking forward to?
Hopefully some garage sales. I'll keep it simple. Just like to do some garage sales and get to meet my new baby hopefully soon. Maybe before the next update episode. There might be another addition to the Pure Hustle team.
Yeah, there was no children when we started the podcast for you.
I think there was one.
No.
Are you sure?
I'm 100% sure.
No.
How old is your son?
He's a little over 5. I think he was only a couple months old.
No way.
I think so.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think he was like 4 months old when we started the podcast. But yeah, so it's definitely the
I just remember how much more free time we had.
Oh yeah, man.
We had so much free time.
Life was different.
I mean, remember hanging out in the studio for hours? I mean, It was a different time. Hey, okay, anything else you're looking forward to?
Nope.
I mean, that's pretty important stuff.
It's like a big thing.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So
what about you?
Not as exciting as yours. So Reseller Genie reached out to us a few months back, but I didn't want to do anything with Reseller Genie until I tested their product, right? Because I don't want to sell anything. Like, I don't want to put an affiliate link unless I know an item is good. And so I want to do Reseller Genie. So I'm going to,
you want to try it out?
I am going to try it out.
So you're giving it free advertising right now before you even try it?
Yes. Because I think it's going to be good. And actually they've done a lot in even the last year. Like I was looking at their importing of eBay items and they actually have an inventory tracker. It's kind of like GoDaddy, but better. Mm. As that's the way I see it, because the two people in charge of it, one's a reseller and one's an accountant. That's a great team. So I'm gonna hop onto Reseller Genie because taxes are coming up and it's kind of weird. I have all this information in GoDaddy, and then in June it's all on QuickBooks, and I don't even know what's going on in my QuickBooks, and so I'm just gonna do Reseller Genie, and hopefully that will be the magic bullet, the silver lining I need to improve my business. Because there's a lot of good things. It shows you sell-through rate. It tracks your inventory, how long you've had an item. Like, instead of having to look all that up, it's all on there for you. So yeah, I guess I'm kind of advertising for them. So if you're listening to Reseller Genie, reach out to us one more time, and we'll give you some feedback, some honest, legit feedback. You know, hopefully it'll be like, have you watched that guy on TikTok? There's a guy that does food reviews. He does like real food reviews in Vegas.
I don't have TikTok.
No, okay. So on my burner account, I just have these random channels. And so this guy like will go to a restaurant, he'll buy the food and he'll eat it. And if it's a good review, that place gets destroyed the next day. Like thousands of people show up. And I'm hoping that's what'll happen if Reseller Genie is a great product. So
yeah, all 10 of you listening right now will be jumping over there.
And just like you, I'm getting back to garage sales, and I want to continue scaling. Nice. I think 2023, if we can, play it right, it's going to be the year to scale. And when this economy rebounds, whether it be next year or a decade, we're going to be in a good place. That being said, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling. Late. Peace.